Welcome back to Kiyo Documentary. Today we bring you a deep dive into the most controversial and explosive release of files. In modern legal history, the Jeffrey Epstein Files, after years sealed behind government doors. Millions of documents have finally been disclosed, exposing connections, claims, and questions that reverberate through the world of politics, power, and privilege. If you want real investigative insights, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you never miss our deep dive reports. Jeffrey Epstein was a financier and convicted sex offender whose crimes against minors shocked the world in the late 2000s. Files associated with him contain decades of investigative material from FBI probes, grand jury testimony, intercepted communications, financial records, flight logs, and images. These documents lay out the scope of federal and state investigations spanning years. Despite the gravity of the crimes and Epstein's death in prison in 2019, while awaiting trial on federal sex trafficking charges, many files remained sealed, prompting legal battles that culminated in a landmark transparency law known as the Epstein Files Transparency Act. On January 30th, 2026, the U.S. Department of Justice released over 3 million pages of material, including nearly 180,000 images and more than 2,000 videos. This marked the largest single release of Epstein-related documents under the transparency mandate. DOJ officials said the release represents about half of the files they identified as responsive, with redactions to protect victim identities and ongoing investigations. Critics, including lawmakers and survivors' advocates, argue that too many pages remain hidden and the release falls short of complete transparency. This material includes archived communications, financial records, and evidence collected during investigations into Epstein and his close associate Ghislaine Maxwell, who is serving a 20-year sentence for sex trafficking. Among the most controversial elements of the new documents are references to powerful individuals, including emails and logs, naming influential public figures, although no new criminal charges have been announced from this batch. The files contain details that have sparked international headlines. For instance, emails with billionaire tech figures and political elites appear in the files, and allegations, some heavily redacted or unverified, have drawn both public shock and fierce denials. High-profile individuals like Bill Gates have called certain claims in the releases absurd and false. There are also documented mentions of former Prince Andrew, prompting renewed calls for cooperation with investigators in the UK, and the resignation of officials abroad tied to what the files show. Despite this, the files do not conclusively criminally implicate powerful figures by themselves. Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche and DOJ spokespeople reiterate that redactions prevent misinterpretation and protect ongoing investigations. The release has ignited political debates in the United States and beyond. Members of Congress from both parties argue that remaining files should be fully disclosed to ensure accountability and transparency. Democrats insist redactions should be minimized, while some Republicans caution about privacy and legal constraints. Victims' advocates have also voiced frustration, saying that partial releases re-expose survivors or obscure the truth about powerful enablers. Critics argue that true transparency is still out of reach and that public trust in institutions suffers when files remain sealed. Internationally, the documents have led to diplomatic pressure, including calls for cooperation from British authorities regarding Prince Andrew's involvement and fallout in European politics. Even as 3 million pages are now public, millions more remain under review or redact. Legal experts say the rulings that forced this disclosure have set a global precedent for transparency in criminal investigations, though the final chapter is far from written. Public opinion continues to evolve, with polls showing widespread skepticism about official narratives and demands for deeper accountability. Online communities, journalists, and independent investigators worldwide continue to comb these files for new revelations and implications. Nobody could have predicted just how explosive these documents would be, and though many questions remain unanswered, the Epstein Files release is a watershed moment in public access to government investigations into abuse and power. If you want scrutiny, breakdowns, and the truth beyond the headlines, subscribe to Kiyo Documentary and click that notification bell. We'll keep digging so you don't miss what really matters. Thanks for watching.